There's a post that I find to be pretty interesting that I saw recently when it comes to Polkadot. Even though DOT, its native token, has had around a 6% recovery in the past 24 hours, which I'm going to talk about later on in the video, and even though nothing I say is financial advice, I first want to talk about this post because, again, a couple days ago, Polkadot talked about how Kusama's runtime upgrade delivered two major leaps. Kusama, again, by the way, is Polkadot's canary network. Keep in mind, when it comes to the block times, it's been reduced, right? From around 6 seconds to less than 2 seconds through elastic scaling. Keep in mind, when it comes to Polkadot 2.0, we did see some aspects when it comes to elastic scaling when it comes to that. However, again, I'm just focusing on Kusama when it comes to this. But then I think, of course, this does relate to Polkadot because it is its canary network. Not to mention, there's something called Revive, a unified smart contract platform running PVM, so Polkadot Virtual Machine, and as well as EVM, which is Ethereum Virtual Machine. Why do I think all of this is pretty interesting to me? Well, it's because we have to take a look at the nature of Kusama and why I think it helps something like Polkadot. Kusama being a canary network to Polkadot, what this means is that usually when a developer wants to launch a project on Polkadot, they'll typically start off with Kusama first. This is a way for a lot of them to test out the project under more real conditions, so to speak, before confirming it's kind of good to go, and then later on they move on to Polkadot. But there's other reasons too. Like a lot of them have said how when it comes to Kusama, it is a little bit more economically friendly when it comes to renting building space as opposed to Polkadot. And also on top of that, it's supposedly also easier to make changes on. So actually, Kusama is more of a soft landing when it comes to just Polkadot, in which case some people may say, okay, it's a little bit kind of costly, and also on top of that, it's not that easy to make changes on. Sometimes they just start off with Kusama first, and then later on they move to Polkadot. It's kind of like if, let's say, I go to a car dealership, and then I test drive the car, and then if I like it, maybe I get it, right? It's kind of like that, but not really. However, that's kind of the analogy that I would use. So if something like Kusama has some upgrades, why would that be a bad thing when it comes to Polkadot? If anything, it's kind of helping it, right? Fundamentally, of course, and I think in the development side of things as well. And now, when I take a look at something like Polkadot, its native token called DOT, doing around 6% in the past 24 hours, is it really the best? Not really. I mean, back last year in 2025, in October, we saw a new all-time low. But ever since then, DOT has been making a very slight recovery in the grand scheme of things, not doing the best. However, could there be a ceiling when it comes to this? Or sometimes people may argue, could this be hypothetically prolonged? My response is, if there's no change in sentiment when it comes to altcoins, and if there's no altcoin season, there's probably going to be a little bit of a ceiling, I would hypothetically assume. But if there is an actual altcoin season, or if, let's say, the sentiment when it comes to altcoins starts changing, then who knows what this could be? Because when it comes to something like DOT, we have to keep in mind, when it comes to where it was, I'm not even talking about years ago. Let's just say we take a look at back in May, right, of 2025. The market cap was around 8 billion. Right now, the market cap is around 3.5 billion. So actually, just less than a year ago, we saw a market cap that was over 2 times where it is as of right now. And that was not even an altcoin season. Did anyone think that May of 2025 was an altcoin season? I don't think so. And it already did that. The thing is this, Bitcoin as of right now, it's not over 2 times lower than any point it's ever reached in history, right? We've never seen Bitcoin at 180 grand so far. You know what I mean? DOT is actually over 2 times lower than where it was just back in May. Again, Bitcoin is not over 2 times lower than any point it's ever reached in history. This is just my kind of analogy when it comes to this. And if I take a look back further, let's say in December of 2024, so it's over a year at this point, the market cap at that point was around 16 billion. Right now, market cap is around 3.5 billion. So DOT is over 4 times lower than where it was slightly over a year ago. And if, let's say, the sentiment when it comes to altcoins returns to that, right? Would I be surprised if I saw DOT again at around a $16 billion market cap, assuming if all the conditions kind of returned back to where it was? It wouldn't necessarily surprise me, but the thing is this, again, DOT is over 4 times lower than that. Ethereum is not over 4 times lower than any point it's ever reached in history. Neither is Bitcoin currently. This is my perspective. Who knows what's going to happen? because I do not know exactly what could happen, but this is just from what I see from the charts, right? This is just what I see historically. And I'm just taking a look at it as it is as of right now, and what I saw in the past, that's about it. But actually, if I want to talk about a random hypothetical that, I'm just maybe thinking about, because keep in mind, I saw around $52 when it comes to DOT back in 2021. So years ago at this point, right? If I take a look at DOT as of right now, it's around 23 and a half times lower than $50. But the thing is, DOT has actually exceeded over $50 in the past before, slightly, in 2021. The thing is this, again, around 23 and a half times lower than where it was just, back in 2021. The thing is this, in the peak of the 2021 cycle, we saw around 300 million owners. Fast forward to today, there's allegedly over 600 million. But this is without seeing an altcoin season during this cycle, in my perspective. Also on top of that, this is without really seeing Bitcoin ever at like even 200 grand. And there's already like this many owners when compared to before. What would have happened if back then there was like around 600 million owners in 2021? What would have been the case when it comes to Polkadot? You know what I mean? Like back then it already even reached around $50. That was like with around 300 million owners within this space. Not saying that they all believed in DOT, because they did not, right? Clearly, this is my perspective. But then, it did that back then with way less owners than right now. So what could happen if there was an altcoin season during this cycle? Only time will tell. But the thing is, at $50, the market cap, considering current circulating supply at that point, would be around 80 billion. That's not a groundbreaking figure by any means. BNB that year in 2021 reached over 100 billion in terms of market cap, and we're just specifically taking a look at what BNB did in 2021. And the thing is, when it comes to Polkadot, I would arguably say that when it comes to its mission, it seems a little bit more kind of long-term focused than a lot of other projects out there, because we have to assume this, right? Because Polkadot, it's focused on connecting blockchains together. It's focused on interoperability. So having more blockchains doesn't inherently make it kind of, I guess, worried as a project, because Polkadot as a layer 0, and more specifically, it is trying to connect blockchains together. If I consider that, if there's more blockchains that pop up, why would that be a bad thing when it comes to Polkadot if there's more of what it's trying to help? You know what I mean? If I open a cheeseburger restaurant and there's more individuals in that area that want to eat cheeseburgers, why would that be a bad thing for me? In contrast to other projects out there, if there's going to be more projects, it's kind of competing with it, right? But when it comes to Polkadot, if another blockchain pops up, it's like, okay, you know what I mean? Just because it's trying to help connect blockchains together. Now, Polkadot is not the only project that kind of has a layer 0 aspect of it, right? Of course, we take a look at something like Cosmos, which is pretty popular, and even, the BNB chain is a Cosmos-based blockchain. So yeah, it's kind of like pretty popular as well. But when it comes to Polkadot, it's just way more popular than Cosmos as of right now. Arguably, I do think it is the most recognizable project that is focused on connecting blockchains together, focused on interoperability. So if there's a tension for that space, like what we saw back in 2021, but as of right now, there just really isn't that many famous competitors within this space, what would happen to the few that exist? In theory, they would be more known, right? Because there's just not that many options. It's not spread out too much. And again, this kind of harps back to what I just said before, right? I was talking about 2021, but people may think, okay, DOT had around $50 in 2021, but they like to tell me that when it comes to Polkadot right now, it just has way more competitors when it comes to before. The thing is this, if I asked a lot of my friends out there, what was famous in terms of being focused on interoperability back in 2021? A lot of people would have probably said Polkadot, and then some people may argue that, okay, Cosmos, right? But if I fast forward to today, what do people consider kind of the popular players within that specific space? It's still arguably Polkadot and as well as Cosmos. Now also there's something called Axelar, but Axelar is just way smaller than Cosmos, let alone something like Polkadot is just way smaller than that. So 2021, we take a look at now 2026, the arguable top 2 players back then are still in that pretty much same position right now? How is that more competitors? Now, I think some people, what they mean by this is more competitors just generally, right? Like more memes and all this. But when it comes to the specific niche that Polkadot is focused on, I do not see such a drastic amount in terms of competitors that can actually have the sort of notoriety of something like a Cosmos or like an Axla or even like a Polkadot level. I just have not seen that. So when it comes to me, okay, there's more competitors right now. I'm totally aware of that. But is there more competitors when it comes to the niche that it's in? You know what I mean? I don't think so, actually, but this is just my perspective. And I haven't given up when it comes to Polkadot, and I'll see what happens this year in 2026. But I wanted to make an updated video when it comes to Polkadot, talking about what they posted very recently when it comes to Kusama, which again is its canary network. However, I hope you all have enjoyed 2026 so far, and I hope you all have a very nice day. And I want to say thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next video. I'm out. Peace. Bye.